Hey, how you doing, everybody? Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, September the 19th, 2024, and on the show tonight, the very special Maggie Hope Braun of Kickley, Canada. She's got a whole bunch of things to go through with us tonight, and I have to say, I've seen her backstage, and she's looking better than I've seen her over the last year and a half. Why? Because I think she took some time off. She took some time off over the last month or so, made a trip out east, visited some Atlantic beaches in the Atlantic provinces, took the family, had a good time, relaxed, unwound, and she's back at it. And she's got a big, huge presentation for us tonight I'm looking forward to seeing. Also, let me tell you a couple of things about what is going on in the next couple of days. First thing here, the million-person march is happening all across the country tomorrow, starting at various times, depending on the city or the town that you live in. And you can find out more at, what's the website here? Handsofourkids.ca. Handsofourkids.ca. Of course, this is all about SOGI 123 being installed in public schools across the country. It's about the sexual curriculums that our kids are being exposed to, kids as young as 5 and 6 years old, depending on the teacher. And there's all kinds of horror stories coming out about that we've covered on this show, and I'm sure you've seen other places. Here are all the locations across the country you can take part in the million-person March for Kids tomorrow. And again, depending on what city or town you live in, it's a different staggered start time. You can find out all of the information, like I just said, handsofourkids.ca. Handsofourkids.ca. Also, on Saturday, if you're in the Winnipeg Metropolitan region, you live in the Winnipeg area, and by the way, this is going all across the country, and Maggie's going to talk about this. This is going all across Manitoba. I just alerted a friend of mine in Roblin, Manitoba, that this is coming her way very, very soon. There's a town, very acrimonious population in Roblin, which is a town of about 3,000 people, very close to the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. And there have been some questionable proposals by the town council, the municipal council there, that people in that town have questioned. And when the council doesn't listen to them, of course, especially in a smaller place like that, they're going to get very upset and stop these councilors in the street and ask them politely at first, hey, what's going on with this, man? And then if they don't answer, which apparently has been the case in several different locations across the country, people are going to get a little bit more upset. WMR, Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Information Afternoon, not night, afternoon, is coming up on Saturday afternoon between 2 and 4:30. Myself, Ken Drysdale, Ken Lee, will be there presenting everything we can tell you about the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan 2050 for the entire area. This goes about land use. This is about surveillance. This is about transportation, whether you can or cannot drive on certain thoroughfares at certain times of the day, even certain times of the week, plus all kinds of United Nations ICLEI language included in this Plan 2050. We'll discuss all of that in Stonewall, the Stonewall Legion, between 2 and 4:30. Apparently, capacity for this venue is about 400. So if you want a seat, guarantee you want to see, get there early. Let's say 1 o'clock for the presentation, which starts at 2 o'clock, going until 4:30 at the Stonewall Legion on Saturday afternoon. And we'll see you there. Again, Ken Lee, Ken Drysdale, Manitoba Stronger Together, and myself, we will see you there. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
All right, welcome back to the show. We've got Maggie Hope Braun from Kickley, Canada on the show. Hello, Maggie. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. You look fantastic, by the way. I was mentioning that at the beginning of the show, but I guess all that rest has helped you out, huh? You're muted. We got to turn your microphone on before we can hear anything you're saying.
Sorry about
Hello.
that. Yeah, the
That's all
rest
right.
is
Hi.
good. And I'm the type of person, when I rest, I get stuff done. So here I am.
You don't really rest. You don't really rest. You've got an entire presentation lined up for us tonight, right?
I do. I want to take Canada through our counterattack to Agenda 21.
Okay, so you sent me all of the stuff. We had a very good conversation, Maggie and I, you guys, this afternoon before we came on tonight. So I know what she's going through. She sent me the entire list. First of all, please explain to us what Kickley is, because there's a lot of people. I mean, they get confused. They hear Ickley and they go, "What is Ickley exactly?" I've heard that before, but I don't know what it is. And then your organization is kind of a play on words called Kickley, which can be found, by the way, you guys. Kickley.ca. That's KICLEI.ca. That's Maggie's thing. So please, Maggie, tell us all about it.
Well, so Kickley is, again, like you said, a play on words. And I don't think a lot of people know what Ickley is. So in our first presentation to Peterborough, we introduced Ickley as a main player that's downloading Agenda 21 to our local councils, and walked people through some of the original documents that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities gave our municipalities back in 1994 when they launched the Partners for Climate Protection program. So basically, I think this all started in Ottawa. It started before that, but here we were.
Kickley? Are you talking about Kickley here?
Well, this whole movement, where is this movement going? Right. What is our plan? What are we going to do moving forward?
Okay.
And,
before we even get going on this, before we even begin, because there's always new people coming into the show on whatever platform you guys are watching on, whether you guys are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch or the website shadowdavis.com. You could be watching on X tonight. Maybe you're watching on Telegram or Rumble. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is we need to know, Maggie, your beginnings. And when we go back to, you said Ottawa, you're talking about the Freedom Convoy and what you did there, which was, I'm not going to tell it. You go ahead and tell his story. It's your story. It's not mine.
Yeah, I was there on the last day with people from all across this country, amazing people articulating well their reason for being there, and watching the riot police just advance and advance and advance in front of our parliament, our Canadian parliament, where, if there was ever a place for Canadians to converge and make their civic duty known and exercise civil disobedience, that was the place. And, Canada is such a big country. So for something like that to happen is a miracle in itself. And it brought a lot of people together, as we know. And it dawned on me that it was historical, and that they would never be able to justify what they were doing in removing the peaceful protesters from the streets. And
you guys have all seen the video, I'm sure, by now. Those of you who are here watching the show tonight, you've seen the video of the last couple of days of the Freedom Convoy, and it was awful. Some of the things that were going on there, the way the police were kettling the protesters, if you can call them that. I'd call them freedom fighters. They're there standing up for the rights of the entire population of this country. And so you came face to face with a line of them.
Yeah, we all did. Everyone that was there, everyone that was watching, I think we all knew what was happening and what it meant for our country. And several of us probably had that moment where we decided we weren't going to move back any further. And that's what it was for me. I was looking at the West Bloc. They had us on O'Connor, and I just knew they couldn't justify this moving forward. So,
Were they actually physically pushing you back with their riot shields?
oh yeah. Anyway, long story short, I decided not to move back.
The reason I'm asking you this, Maggie, is because I'm looking at you right now. I see that it still affects you emotionally, just the way you're telling the story.
Yeah, I've kind of gone through some PTSD therapy, I guess I'll say. And I guess now I try not to, well, my brain doesn't really want to remember the experience behind the line. And ultimately, there were a lot of great people there. And I think it's important that some of us did not allow ourselves to be pushed back any further. Myself, Jeremy Glass from Shelburne, he knelt with me, and we went through the line together. And on the other side, they were quite violent, but the police officers from Ottawa did say when they picked me off the line that the protesters won this, and we proved we were peaceful, and the truth will come out. And I just think that was kind of the birth of our network, our movement. It brought a lot of great people together. And I think moving forward, we have a great opportunity. And if we could just move forward from that conversation, then I can get back into what I wanted to present. Because I do absolutely go into a different mode when I think about it.
Well, it's just that you said, it all began in Ottawa. And I went, yeah, I suppose we should go back and talk about that, because that's the seed of it all, right? So, yeah, let's go ahead and go through your presentation. All the things that you've been doing, all the things that you have planned to do, and the things that you're doing now, which are quite important.
Yeah, so it all goes back to Ottawa. Thank you. Thank you for putting me back there. It dawned on me at that moment that Canada was such a large country. We're the second largest country in the world. We're a very, very sparsely populated country, and we're dealing with a global network. And it appears that their agenda is being downloaded locally. So this is a huge opportunity for us across the country to counter that agenda at the local level moving forward. So I was really excited to, start attending rallies outside my local town hall. And it just dawned on me, and, networking with the local people here on what was happening at our town hall, that we should start doing delegations at our town hall and opposing it. So I do have a couple of things to share going forward. I could share just a little clip of that first delegation that really went viral in our movement and showed people that Agenda 21 is being implemented at the local level, and it introduced ICLEI as a key player in all of this. We hear about the United Nations and the WEF and all these international organizations, but who has heard of ICLEI? So we introduced that and some of their founding documents. And from there, I can tell a little bit of the story and what we can do moving forward to push back together all across the country.
You got the video ready?
I do.
Can you send it to me so I can put it up on the screen, please?
I have it ready to go here. So if I can present it.
Yeah, you can present it all right. It's just that there it is. Okay. So we're going to throw this up here on the screen. There we go. Perfect. Excellent.
I'm just going to take over tonight, Shadow. I got it all lined up just like you do.
I'm going to sit back and watch with everybody else then. Go ahead.
All right. So this is just a clip of the first presentation to Peterborough, June 26, 2023.
I found in my research that the doomsday predictions were based on flawed science and stemmed from unelected international organizations.
I just want to check that the sound is sharing.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Can you guys hear it? Everybody can hear it? Sound is fine. All right, we're good to go. Keep going.
The policies that they are recommending have undermined our rights and our sovereignty. And I would like to give a background on that before I address the reports on your agenda tonight. In 1992, Canada signed on to the UN Agenda 21. A total of 178 nations agreed because this international agreement promised to bring big money for going green. Quote, once signed, Canada became a UN member state, a nation state, and was no longer a sovereign country under the rule of law and the supremacy of God. And everything I'm saying, I believe
So
that.
I'm just going to jump forward there and state that we are still a sovereign nation. We just need to pull it back a little bit here.
I believe that acronym is pronounced ICLI, but you can, or ISIL, you can correct me which one. Instead of following parliamentary procedures for law changes, the municipal primer, which looks like this, the title of it, the title page, was sent to all our local towns in 1994 and outlined how they would restructure their governments to implement the global agenda instead of a local one, and committing public funds to private sustainable initiatives, development goals, and foreign investors under the guise of saving the planet. Now to look at your reports. First report, PEAC 23-010. Here is a plan. In here is a link to a plan that identifies measures required to achieve net zero by 2050. The measures in that plan include a vague reference to targeting mobility. This report would nominate one of you to sit on an upcoming advisory group hosted by an unnamed consultant. And this is set to launch this July. I assume this project consultant is connected with ICLI.
Okay, so so I introduced the idea of ICLI and the municipal primer, and the municipal primer was launched in 1994, and it's really the Canadian blueprint on how to implement Agenda 21. And we see that this primer is subtitled Promoting Sustainable Development Through Local Strategic Action. So then we started looking at strategic plans and official plans moving forward. And I'll just show you that page there and come back to it.
Primer on the United Nations Conference on Environment, and this was 1992. People are asking, it goes back that far, like to Brian Mulroney days.
Yes.
Wow.
So he signed us on at that point, and a little bit of back history on that. ICLI, I'll just stop sharing for a minute. ICLI was founded in 1990 by the United Nations, and immediately started working with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to draft Agenda 21. So the documents that were signed and agreed to in Rio de Janeiro were drafted by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and ICLI and other municipal federations, probably from other countries. So this truly is a global to local agenda. And when we look at what sustainable development is, it's all about land use, right? And if we look at the municipal primer, it talks about this ideal of, moving the majority of the population into settlement areas. And this is where we get our our high density housing and all these extra bylaws and policies and property taxes in the rural areas, so that it's making it more and more unaffordable for us to live there. And we're getting moved in and pushed into these settlement areas where it's easier to monitor and track us and control us, right? And that's what sustainable development is. I have here
Before you continue, I'm just going to throw something up. I found out, and I was off the top of the show, I'd mentioned this, that up in Roblin, Manitoba, which is a town, like I said, very close to the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border of about 3,000 people. It's not big at all. I've been there. And there's a couple of pieces of land where kids play right in the middle of town that the town council there decided they were going to sell. That land was going to be sold to developers. And what do you think, with the intention of something being built there, and what do you think was going to be built there?
Solar, wind farms.
Good, very good guess. It's basically tenement government style housing. You know, 500-600 square foot studio apartments, maybe 2-3 floors high, in a town of 3,000 people with like amazing, huge parcels of land surrounding it. I mean, it's 3,000 people, this little town in the middle of the prairies where there's land as far as the eye can see. And they want to jam as many people as they can into as small a space as they can.
And I don't know if you've been following, but the federal government keeps talking about this housing accelerator fund that they have. And in Ontario, I'm not sure what it is everywhere else, but only 0.2% of all that money that they're giving to the municipalities for housing, affordable housing, only 0.2% is going to rural municipalities. So that means 98% of it is going to urban municipalities to build high density housing. So this is the future of Canada if we don't start going into our councils and pointing out that they don't have to do this, which is proving to be effective.
I know that your whole purpose is the local initiatives, and you've done several different city and town hall presentations in the past year and a half or so. But if we take a look at the proposals that have been put forward by Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau announced a couple of weeks ago that he doesn't want to sell the land that Pierre Poilievre has been talking about. Poilievre's talking about selling the land that Canada has, selling some properties that is no longer in use for the federal government. Trudeau wants to lease that land to developers. So the federal government would become essentially the landlord of anybody who rents an apartment there, whereas Poilievre wants to sell it, but I'm not sure under what conditions. Do you see any difference in either one of their plans, or do you feel they're both on the same page when it comes to this high density housing deal?
I think either way, they win, right? That the government either has control, or the sponsors of ICLEI have control, and we can get into that. But essentially, ICLEI is funded by Google, which is funded by BlackRock and Vanguard. So either way, BlackRock and Vanguard is going to have control over this land, or the government will, and they're working hand in hand with these land acquisition corporations.
Yeah, that is true, right? I mean, think about it like that. And who's behind this land acquisition company? Well, it's this company who's owned by this company, owned by this company, and eventually you get to BlackRock, State Street, or Vanguard. So you have done. Did you want to go into some of the other presentations that you've done, or have you got something else beforehand?
Yeah, I really want to just keep it positive and show the example of our first win, which was shortly after that first presentation. We went to a local township, Duro-Dummer, in the midst of approving the official plan for Peterborough County, which you're dealing with out in Manitoba. People are dealing with official plans all over the place. So I just wanted to show a quick example of some of the points that I made in Dummer and the councillors' response and show people that our councillors have the power and the authority to stop this. So our job is to influence them. Don't wait for the next election and try and get elected. Think of all that work. And I don't discourage people from participating in that process, but perhaps some of our energy could be directed towards influencing those that are currently holding decision-making authority in our country. So I'll just show a clip of Duro Dummer for interest.
Draw it up. Here we go. All right.
The official plan for the community, for any community, should be dependent on the engagement with those who live and work in that community, not those from outside that community, and certainly not those from international organizations. This plan is essentially a plan to dissolve this dear county of Duro Dummer. By accepting this plan, you're accepting that Duro Dummer will one day be dissolved and amalgamated even further into this bigger structure.
And finally, that the provincial government be requested to expedite the introduction of the new provincial planning statement.
Regarding Maggie Braun's presentation, I think we should look at some of these considerations for our township through the staff, and maybe we could see if there's anything there that can keep us alive. You know, if this is facts that's going on, I think we need to stand up and be counted. So I would like you to review some of the suggestions that she made, and maybe we should send those forward.
When I keep hearing the maps, the mapping isn't even officially yet. It's basically old stuff. So I don't see how the county of Peterborough can pass something that they don't have all the information on. Another thing that for our township is the low growth rate that they've established over the next, till 2051, something like that. Like I think it's 5% or something like that. I mean, that isn't even going to keep us status quo for getting.
Sit here in good faith and say that I would support Peterborough County's official plan because it is essentially a death sentence for this municipality. Growth rate is incredibly low. There's nothing quote unquote in it for the township whatsoever. It completely stagnates growth. It limits the rights of property owners quite significantly. And as Councillor Bloc pointed out, it feels like a lot of the designations were arbitrarily made, especially with in respect to what's considered prime agricultural land.
With the low growth that we're looking at in the official plan for the township, it's unsustainable. Again, the mapping has not come out for all of the agricultural land.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor just to send a letter of support to support referral of the approval of the plan. All right. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries.
Who's the dark-haired woman in the black shirt there who didn't put her hand up?
That was probably one of the staff.
Oh, so they don't get a vote.
So the staff don't get to vote. Let's remember that, guys.
Yeah.
There are people in that room who get to vote, and there's people who don't get to vote. And we can influence the people who get to vote. And at the end of the day, that's what the staff has to do. So what we want to do is to start making recommendations, just like the staff does, as professionally as the staff does.
Well, they do work for us, Maggie. I mean, that is a point you make, right? Like they do, the councils, all of these politicians who run for office and eventually get elected, they do work for us, and they should listen to us. And what we've been seeing more and more from politicians at every level, whether it's municipal or state, provincial, or federal, is they've kind of got this weird buffer zone between them and the people they represent. And I've seen a lot of laughing, actually, from some of these politicians towards some of the people in their ridings, in their wards. And it's incredibly frustrating and even maddening to see that kind of thing happening. But you had a very good experience in Duro-Dummer there, obviously, and you've built some relationships with a lot of these councillors in a lot of these townships in Ontario, and you continue to do so.
Yeah, I think that there are, it makes a difference when the people start showing up. So I think that was the first time in Duro-Dummer's history that that room was full. And showing up makes a difference. I always say that when it comes to civic engagement, we have a lot of different strategies that we can use. And obviously we can call and let them know what we think. And in their calculations, that represents 10 people who think the same. So if everyone calls, they get a number on that. If people start to write letters and emails, that represents, and take that effort, that represents about 100 people who are interested in that topic. When people show up in person, that represents 1,000 people. So we made a point to look at how many people were in our county, and we put a call out that we needed so many people to be there, and we did great. And we've done that in other municipalities as well. And it's a great point to make when you're doing delegations, right? In Kawartha, I think that there's 72,000 people in Kawartha, and we show up with 72 people. And it makes a difference, and it changes the entire atmosphere of the room. And Canada is so lacking in civic engagement that this really makes a difference. It's like astounding if that many people show up.
What are the reactions from the politicians when they see that many people show up? The looks on their faces, the things that, like, are they scared, surprised? How do they respond to that?
I think they start to recognize that they don't hold all the power. If somebody can pull that many people into a room, they hold power. And it really comes down to, what we talk about. The people have the power. How do we actually bring that from the 5D to the 3D? We show up. we start showing up. And
You've had a couple of other successful presentations. There's a Thorold video, I think, that you want to show us, right?
I do. Yes. So let me just jump to that. Okay. So a little. Oh, there we go. I have to share it first. You're much better at jumping around at this than I am.
I've been doing it for a while.
Okay, so I have it all in order here. Okay, I'm just going to jump to this one.
Oh, here we go.
That
all right.
Counts.
Oh, that's an hour long.
No. Hold on.
We're going to go to a certain section.
Okay, I wanted to just let everyone know. So we started working in the municipality of Thorold, and that's in the Niagara region. And it really came down to, so after the delegation to Peterborough and Duro-Dummer, councillors started reaching out. Okay, so there are good councillors all across this country ready to go, but they just need the people to back them up. And Councillor Handley from Thorold reached out, and he introduced the Partners for Climate Protection program to me. And the fact that this program was working its way in through the staff recommendations to their council. And he wanted to work together and research on how he could oppose it. So we discovered the Partners for Climate Protection program at that point, thanks to Councillor Handley, and the joining resolution for that program, and had a friendly council to work with. And we pulled together a small team, and we started to implement some of the strategies that we have in our toolbox when it comes to civic engagement. And they ended up inviting the Partners for Climate Protection program to the council. And I think it was the first time in the Partners for Climate Protection program history that any council had ever asked them a question about what their program actually is, how much it would cost to implement it. And I just wanted to share a little bit from their presentation and the councillors' questions to them, and go from there. So let me just pull up my timestamps here, and I'll take you through it as quickly as we can. And I think we'll just start at.
There's no rush, Maggie. Don't feel like you're under any pressure at all. I mean, there's only 1,500 people watching live right now. And then there's probably going to be 10 times that by tomorrow. So no pressure. No pressure at all.
All right. I'll just summarize what they say in their presentation. They say it's free. They say it's voluntary. It'll give them access to a big network and access to their secretariat, which is essentially ICLEI, and ICLEI's software for data collection. And then the counselors start asking questions, which I think is fantastic. Oh, make sure I'm on the right tab here. There we go.
There's 500.
So all of these costs justified and communicated to the stakeholders involved, because when we asked our staff, they have no idea how much this is going to cost.
The program doesn't cost any money, but I think, again, as the municipality identifies their priorities, sometimes we find that things that you might already be working on are opportunities to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, and they can fit into work you're already doing. And again, we try to provide those opportunities to connect through the Green Municipal Fund to help sort of support initiatives that generally contribute to your greenhouse gas reductions.
Thank you. Economics.
You're on your last question because you're running out of time.
Last question, Mr. Mayor. I have a whole bunch. Economic sustainability is as important as environmental sustainability. How does ICLEI address concerns about the economic impact of its initiatives on local communities, particularly regarding the financial burden on property taxes?
I can't speak to ICLEI. I work for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
So the whole way through, they deny their affiliation with ICLEI.
Just replace the word ICLEI with who you work for.
I can repeat the question.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So that's really interesting. They denied their affiliation with ICLEI. They wouldn't answer the question on how much it costs. And then Councillor Handley jumps in and he asks a couple questions as well about if this is provincially mandated, and it's not. So we'll listen to that and their response.
Would that be in accordance with the Green Energy Act of 2009 and updated in 2019 in regards to municipalities' obligations?
I'm really not sure about that question.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go on. Seeing that you represent the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Seeing you're here representing them, can I ask you why, as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Government of Canada, that you would absolve yourselves from any liability in regards to municipalities implementing your ICLEI initiatives? Why do you absolve yourself from any liability?
I might ask my manager, Lindsay Telford, to jump in on that one and see if we can get you an answer.
I would like a little bit more clarification on the question. What exactly are you referring to with respect to absolving responsibility?
Yeah, okay, actually in your PCP Partners for Climate Protection website, there's a section there that says this project is carried out with the assistance from the Green Municipal Fund, a fund financed by the Government of Canada and administered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and ICLEI. Notwithstanding this support, the views expressed are the personal views of the authors and ICLEI Canada. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Government of Canada accept no responsibility for them. Can I ask why you have absolved yourself any liability in regards to us initiating this program? Why would you do that?
I think because the priorities that each municipality sets within the scope of the program are their priorities. We are not prescribing those priorities, nor do we necessarily endorse all the priorities.
So what are they even doing there? What are they even doing there? Like, seriously.
So, like I said, it seems like this was the first time they have ever been asked for a presentation to answer questions about their program. This program comes into the municipalities with a 3-page joining resolution, usually recommended by staff or some counselor that's been to a fancy networking event. And if you look at the FCM, the Global News actually just reported that the city of Vancouver spent an enormous amount of money, serving smoked salmon and everything to the counselors who would come to their event. And somebody put in Freedom of Information request to find out how much it was for the city of Vancouver to host this event. And it was a lot of money. So the joining resolution comes in. This is in now 520 municipalities, slips onto the desk in an agenda. They adopt the program and nobody asks any questions. Nobody looks on their website to see that the Government of Canada and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have completely waived liability on this program. Nobody asks the details on whether or not this is actually provincially mandated, all the extra staff hours and work to collect all of this data. Who's funding this program behind the scenes, and if it's a good idea to have international third parties connected with BlackRock and Vanguard to be recommending policies on how we use our land. Nobody's asking any questions. So I just got to hand it to Thorold for doing this. And I hope that councillors across the country will start stepping up. And that's why, and I'll go into it, the resources on my platforms are there for us at the grassroots, but also to provide our councillors across the country with the talking points and resources that they need in order to counter this themselves, because they're the ones who need to step up in the next 5 years to get this done. And there was a really great question that Councillor DeRose asked to the science of it all, to just finish up
about the climate change portion of this.
Yeah, Councillor DeRose asked a great question about CO2. So that was the last little piece.
Okay, Councillor Hanley, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question. I was going to hold off on it in regards to now that we've gone here, because it's you don't work correctly. You work for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And do you believe that a non-governmental organization's agenda should be part of a municipal council council mandate? And I ask that because ICLEI themselves, if I could just find here, I apologize in regards to it because I have to go on my phone and get it up. But there's a
sorry
about this. I shouldn't have to read. It's approximately 420 parts per million.
Thank you very much. That's
sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few more questions. Are you able to tell us how much carbon dioxide is in the Earth's atmosphere?
Not at this current moment.
Yeah. I'm a teacher and I like numbers, so I'm calling this carbon dioxide by numbers. It's approximately 420 parts per million, or 0.42%, 42 of 1% of all the gases in the atmosphere. How much of that carbon dioxide do you think comes from natural sources like decayed animal and plant material?
Seems outside the scope of my presentation today.
Just to let you know, it's 97%.
No, it's not. That's the basis of your presentation.
Well, they should be knowledgeable about this, Mr. Mayor. If they're pushing this stuff on us, they should be knowledgeable about this. I shouldn't have to research it and learn, Mr. Mayor. So 3% so basically, that means the world's 8 billion people produce only 3% of all carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I don't think we're here for a science lesson.
He's asking questions.
I'm asking
Mr. Mayor,
questions.
point of order.
I'm just gonna, do our presenters have an answer for that, or are we moving on?
I like this, Mayor.
I would only recommend that council look to the International Panel on Climate Change. Online has a wealth of resources and information should you wish to look at the global consensus on climate science at the present moment. And I'm sure they have representatives and Canadian representatives who might be willing to come to council and share their thoughts on the state of science.
Do you know who funds them? I didn't think so. Thank
Do
you.
you know who funds them? He asked.
Okay, Councillor
I didn't
Hanley,
think
go
so.
ahead.
They don't know.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just want.
So yes, I recommend, that's on the Kickley Canada YouTube page. That whole presentation is 30 minutes long. It's fascinating. And this is what we're up against, in my opinion, right?
Maggie,
So
we need counselors like that in every municipality in this country who can just ask a question like straight up like that. And it's a reasonable question. I mean, if you guys are going to come here and tell us that we need to green everything up and we need to go ahead and jam people into apartment buildings and we need to put windmills and solar panels into our town here and wipe out a monument maybe that's been there for 100 years because it's in the way of moving forward into this green, clean plan, then at least have the grace to have the rationale behind why we should do that when you come to our council meeting, right?
right. And I just see Michael's comment there. Hard to find those in the big cities. And what I've said at the beginning is our country is lacking leadership. So if you don't have leaders in your community, start networking, get everyone's contacts, encourage people in what they're doing, let them know what you're doing, and step up. Don't wait to get elected to go out there and start speaking for the people, and utilize the information I'm providing and your own knowledge base and life experience and expertise to get out there and just start being a leader. That's the type of people that came to Ottawa. We're all leaders, right? And
isn't that interesting? And they all went home and created their own groups after that. Well, not every single person. We can't say that about everybody, but many of them did. And many of them are still speaking out. I talked to Derek Noonan this morning, who's a really good guy. And, he's been one of those guys for the last I guess even before the Convoy, he was one of those guys, and now he's even a bigger presence. I want to. You sent me a list of so many things that you wanted to cover on the show tonight, and I said, "Yeah, okay, that looks fine." And then I went, "No, wait a minute, that's way too much." So, what is absolutely vital that we cover next? There's like 20 things here still to go.
So
we just haven't got the time.
So moving forward, we continued doing delegations in Peterborough County. We started researching who the local NGOs were that are monitoring and tracking our progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, who is administrating the Partners for Climate Protection program if it's not being done in the city. We identified our local NGO, Sustainable Peterborough, and did delegations pointing out how much funding they were receiving and recommending that they reallocate those funds to local programs. And just recently, yesterday, I spoke to the county of Peterborough, and it appears that the city and the county are reallocating funds to a consultant to bring the work that Sustainable Peterborough was doing in-house. So I took that opportunity to go and speak to the county and make my recommendations to withdraw from the Partners for Climate Protection program. And the CAO, essentially, after when she was asked, she skirted the question and we will be following up on that. Essentially, this is what it's a great example of how they, when they're asked a question by the council, the CAO does this little word play. She leaves out a whole bunch of information and moves forward from there. So it's really important that when we do our delegations, we follow up and that we do keep communicating with the councils in our area. But here in Peterborough, I think we have a great opportunity to withdraw our entire county from that program. And I just wanted
to of that CAO.
Pardon?
Do you have video of that CAO giving you the word salad there?
I do.
Can we see it?
Yeah. Hold on.
Because I'm interested in hearing how they try and skirt around a direct question like that.
Okay, so it is a little bit long, with word salad and stuff. So.
All right. Well, when we're done, we're done. I mean, we'll see how she bumbles through it here. Okay.
It kind of starts with the end of my presentation, and then goes into the question. Should just pull it up. There we go. I'll just start a little bit later here. Labor-intensive data collection, which includes energy consumption and waste data from all sources within corporate and community sectors, setting reduction targets to achieve net zero by 2050, and adopting an ongoing series of policy changes and expenditure approvals to meet those targets. Furthermore, the program's affiliation with ICLEI and its funding sources, including major corporations like Google, BlackRock, and Vanguard, raises concerns. I'll just jump ahead. Program, and focusing on practical, locally driven initiatives, we can make meaningful progress that directly benefits our residents. I support the staff's recommendation to reallocate funds from Sustainable Peterborough and to consult.
Ms. Braun. In terms of the strategic plan process that we're going to be undertaking, should council go forward with this, I'm just wondering what that looks like in terms of consultant and any benchmarks that we may be looking at in the future.
For you, and thank you. So the recommendation that I've reported in my report is that we work collaboratively with the townships in this regard. And so it would be preliminary at this point to determine what those overall goals will be. We need to work as a group collaboratively to put that together in terms of reference and scope of work. Our participation with the FCMP's Partners in Climate Protection Program started in 2018 when we passed our climate change action plans at the county for the community and corporate, as well as all the townships and the 2 First Nations. Those plans identified a lot of community-based actions that have been tracked throughout, and we did achieve a step 4 in the framework.
We can stop it there, Maggie. I get what she's doing. She's just trying to evade and dodge the questioning. But one thing she did say that catches my attention there is the city should work collaboratively with the townships. In Ontario, for those of you that don't know, townships, counties, same as municipalities pretty much everywhere else, right? So these are areas that are governed by their own municipal councils. And when you're talking about merging areas or municipalities together, to me anyway, it sounds like that's what they're doing with Peterborough. Are they trying to do that with the townships merging into the city itself?
No, not necessarily in Peterborough. They've done that in Kawartha. We're really lucky in Peterborough. So our townships at this point still have a county council and and we can go and speak to local councils in each township, in each village, and make our points known and influence them there. So it's a little bit easier here in Peterborough in that regard. And there's benefits to both.
Is it provincially mandated in Ontario that these counties or townships come up with their own climate plans, or are they just doing this on their own?
It's not provincially mandated. Every 5 years, our municipalities have to do an energy consumption demand report. Hope I'm saying that right. And essentially what they look at there is the energy consumption of just municipal buildings that are occupied by people. So, and every 5 years, and it takes Peterborough, the city of Peterborough, about 100 hours to do that. The PCP program looks at everything. And when I say everything, I mean absolutely everything, all of our consumption and waste from all corporate and all community sources. And
so the Partners for Climate Protection move through the area. They check and see the occupancy of each house, each apartment, each business. They want to know exactly how many people are where at any given time. They want data.
It's
right?
an absolute massive data collection process. And, you know, that's what the CAO left out. There's 5 milestones, not 4. She said, we've moved through 4 milestones, and she left out the 5th one, which is repeating the data collection process, which takes a lot of time. And, you know, you can't say that these climate action plans don't cost anything to achieve net zero by 2050 and buy new municipal fleets and charging stations everywhere and adopting all these new building standards that aren't legislated by the provincial government. Just randomly adopt a whole bunch of red tape and upgrade all your municipal buildings and so on. So before we close off, I wanted to give people the action plan that we have. And
well, I don't want to close off. Yeah, there's still a whole bunch of things I want to get to here that you listed. And the reason that I brought up whether or not it was provincially mandated is because it seems like in Manitoba it is. The government of Manitoba has issued a proclamation that says all of the municipalities in this province will have to come up with a climate plan by a certain date. And of course, they've also initiated the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan 2050, which has met with acrimonious response in their second public meeting, second of 2 public meetings they were to have held, the second one being down in Niverville about a month ago. So many people turned up, and you know, the pitchforks and the torches and the fruit and all of that, that they canceled it, and they said they would reschedule it at a later time in a bigger venue because too many people showed up for the venue that was down there. They still haven't rescheduled it yet. Then they claim that they're going to be revamping this plan. But this plan included UN phraseology, something like over 100 times sustainability, diversity, equity, all of that stuff. You know, and so we're onto it. We're doing a presentation in Stonewall this weekend. Ken Drysdale and I are doing this. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a different thing that you've seen in the past couple of years?
No, the official plan that they put forward there is very similar to all the plans we're looking at across the country.
No, I mean the way they're doing it, the way they're trying to get people, and this board that they've come up with has a representative, one representative from each of the 18 RMs that surround the city of Winnipeg. Sometimes it's the mayor, sometimes it's just a councillor, but these particular select individuals have been instructed by the board, which is provincially appointed. There's also 4 appointees on this board, that they are not to discuss anything that gets discussed in the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Board with members of their own councils in their own municipalities, not even their families. It's that hush-hush, which
crazy.
Of course raises eyebrows all over the place. People want to know why the hell they're being so secretive about it. That's what I'm asking here. I mean, like these other ones that you've dealt with, they've been out there in the public, and so you've called a lot of these officials on it, and it's hilarious to watch them, you know, like writhe around trying to answer the questions that you've put to them. But these people, the ones here, They haven't even exposed themselves to the public yet, at least not really.
What's interesting about Plan 2050 is they leave a lot of clues in these documents. So we can thank them for that. They give a great background on how this came about and how, you know, on such a date, they adopted the Sustainable Development Initiative, and that they're they flat out say that this is part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And on such and such a date, they formed this board, and then it changed names several times, and they came out with a report which recommended that they when I was reading it, I found this one clue in there, and I think that one recommendation is what set it all off. So this all was based on this one recommendation, and I think that as we start diving into it, that's going to be what we're actually going to need to target to uproot this out of Winnipeg. So I'm going to be touching base with Manitoba Stronger Together on Monday and hand them my report to go along with what Ken's done. He's done a really great job. And yeah, we're on to them. We're on to them now. And the people are there ready to show up, boots on the ground. So I just hope that everyone gets behind it.
The way it's going here, when you say to people, oh, and by the way, they're giving themselves the power to come and take your land whenever they feel ready to do so, right? The funny thing is, some of these people on this board have been questioned by some of the residents, especially there's one local reporter used to work for the CBC. She questioned the president of this board and said, you've got UN Agenda 2030 all over this report. And dude looked at her and said, oh, now you're just making things up.
Yeah.
Even though it's included in the report itself, I don't even know how many times, maybe a dozen times they say it right there. And then again, they use the language of the United Nations and their 17 SDG goals. So it's not like anybody's making things up. And you wonder if these people have read their own report even, or if they're lying. That's the thing.
No, you know, our counselors across this country need to recognize how important their job is, and it's our job to come alongside them at the same time and help to educate them in a way that
doesn't piss them off, doesn't put them off, right? I mean, we have to, you know, Maggie, you've got a very good philosophy on this. And, you know, Maggie and I have several conversations about this over the past few months. And I think when I told you about the Niverville situation, how people were so upset, there was a lot of yelling that was going on. People couldn't get in from the parking lot. They wanted to know what was going on. I showed you the video of it. You saw that. And rightfully so. These people have every reason to be upset. You know, when you read about possible surveillance on you or your family or your friends at any given time, when you talk about not being able to drive a gas-powered vehicle along certain routes at certain times, or maybe having to get a license to do so from whatever public entity is going to supply that, or, you know, your land. I mean, Ken Lee said to us a couple of months ago, you know, he owns 10 acres in part of the city here. What if and he's one guy, what if they decide that, you know what, you're not using these 10 acres, so we're going to expropriate half that, put up an apartment building for 300 people on it? Would that be okay? But it's not like they come along and ask you. They just do it because they've granted themselves the power to do that. So once you say that to people, that makes them go, what are you talking about? First, I think. And then the next thing is, no, they can't do that. And you say, yes, they can. It's in their report right here. Well, we're not letting that happen. And they also, this board here, has the power to override any local municipal government.
Yeah.
Which is
take them to the I don't know why I'm getting feedback, but it says that what's going on?
Who's this? No, that's me.
Okay. It says that they can take the council to the King's Bench if they go against that board.
Yeah.
Right in the plan.
So if you go to your council, in this particular instance here in Manitoba, maybe not you guys if you're watching in Saskatchewan or if you're watching in Alberta or BC or anywhere else, but in this particular instance in Manitoba, they have created a situation where there's this one board that is the overlord of all of the other rural municipalities and the city of Winnipeg itself, for that matter. So if you go to the RM and you're looking for a permit to dig a well, let's just say, and the RM says, yeah, sure, that's good with us. But then the WMR board comes along and says, no, I'm sorry, but they can't do that. They overrule your rural municipality's elected board. So a bunch of appointees will overrule your elected officials. That's the way it's going here. It's crazy.
You know, they push so far, right? And they've created all this division. But what I'm finding is that these issues affect the people on the left and the right. And when it comes down to it, people are pretty concerned when government overreaches onto what they can do with their land, driving up their property taxes, overtaxing them, misspending the money,
where they can drive,
not answering questions, limiting public feedback. These are all things that people on the left and right actually have concerns about. So what I'm trying to do myself and set an example of is when it comes to this kind of work, at least, it might be different when, you know, I'm around a bonfire or whatever, but if I'm speaking in public about this stuff, I'm very careful, you know, not to use extreme rhetoric and just to drop the emotional attachment to how I feel about all of this and do everything I can to influence the person that I'm speaking to a little bit towards the middle. And that seems to be working. People are following this work that, you know, see themselves on the left because they're tired of the environmental movement being weaponized against the people. They want real local environmental stewardship too, just like me. And when we point out that our government is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on data collection programs and calling it environmental stewardship, that can get underneath the skin of your local tree planter and community garden activist just as much as it can on, you know, people that are just want to live on their land and be left alone and not have someone come and ask what their well is doing and, you know, close down their well. And in your official plan, it talks about they can do that based on being at risk for climate change events, right? So stop using climate change as an excuse to take our property rights away.
But the thing is, when they do use climate change as that excuse, what happens? The first thing that you want to say is, come on, like you come climate change. I mean, first of all, even if it is real, and even if man or humans have caused most of it, look at around you. This is Canada. You know, we're responsible for what, 1.6% of that. Before we can do anything, why don't you go talk to China or talk to India or talk to the United States and have them put a carbon tax on? Do you think that Canada, you know, especially with somebody like Justin Trudeau as the leader of government, is setting an example for any other countries in the world? For goodness sakes. So we are the ones that have to suffer. Well, those guys go ahead and pollute up a storm. Having said that, I think it's all a bunch of BS anyway. Look, I don't want to see, you know, factories billowing smoke into the air any more than the next person. I don't want to see factories dumping poison chemicals into lakes any more than the next guy. I think that is absolutely wrong. But when they go off on this carbon tangent and they start calling you a bad person for driving your car, but in the meantime, you see Justin Trudeau, you know, flying 29,000 kilometers across the country, you know, over the course of the last 2 months, billowing out more CO2 than 500 families could in the next 10 years. You have to realize that there's some level of crap going on here. Right.
And just, you know, just basic facts. That's what I like to use in all of this. When you look at when you look at Manitoba and the population and the land that you have there, and you do the calculation, every single person in Manitoba could technically own, I think, 48 hectares, 48 hectares per person in Manitoba. And they're trying to drive your entire population into high density housing in your city.
It makes no sense at all.
That's sustainable development. Yeah. Sustainable development. So people need to start recognizing that sustainable development is a development scheme that is driving people off the land into high density housing, and it doesn't fit the Canadian mold. That might work in China. Okay? Maybe, right? Maybe, but it doesn't work in Canada. And
you know what's interesting? I mean, if you take a province like Manitoba, it's roughly the same size as the United Kingdom. In Manitoba, there are 1.45 million people, I think, in this entire province. It's massive, right? And there's 1.45 million people, most of them living in this area around the Winnipeg region. The UK has got, 65 million people? And yet they still have countryside as far as the eye can see. You know, there's still several areas of that place where you can go and be alone if you want to be alone. So they're trying to scare us with this overpopulation thing and how we're ruining the planet. But ultimately, just look around you and believe the evidence of your own eyes and ears. 1984, the book said, the party does not want you to believe the evidence of your own eyes and ears. And that's exactly what's going on right now. Maggie, are you still doing Kickley training sessions? Because I've been telling people for the past couple of months, if they want to know if one of these plans exists in their city or municipality, all you need to do is go to Google, type in the name of your city or your municipality, and then type in the word Plan 2050. And chances are good you're going to see something come up like that, probably the first item on your search. And many people have done that, but they don't know what the next step is. And I think that's probably where Kickley comes in.
So if I can just share, I'll take you through it because I'm all organized now.
All right.
Can you see that okay?
Well, I knew you were playing with your dog up until about 5 minutes before the show, so I forgive that.
Yeah, she's a interesting dog. Anyway, so this is from the municipal primer. This is the flow chart on how Agenda 21 is being implemented through Canadian municipalities. And I'm not sure if the audience can see it, but over in this right-hand box.
Make it a little bigger, maybe? Is there any chance of
let me see.
Increasing? Oh, that's a little too big now.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh my gosh. There we go. So right here in the right-hand side, it says means of implementation. So this is really important. This is the blueprint on how Agenda 21 is being implemented through our local municipalities. And it says here, promoting education, public awareness and training, information for decision-making, and of course, the transfer of environmentally sound technology. So in order to counter Agenda 21 at the local level, we need to promote education, public awareness, training, and information for decision-making. So on the Kickley Substack, I have a series called Climate Facts. And I'm giving people, like I said, you know, we're going to drop the rhetoric. We're just going to stick to the facts, keep it simple. There's some videos here, and I have a whole series coming out of essays, essentially, and short 1 to 3 minute videos that can be used to educate us so that we can speak to climate change in a way that will get results. So that's one form of education for our side. And when it comes to providing information for decision making, that's what the Kickley Substack is all about. So here I'm releasing reports on a variety of subjects related to, as I build up to the main report to take across the country on the UN directive programs. And these reports essentially are meant and are being sent to our councillors and elected representatives across the country. So they're getting information now on our side to counter the official narrative. And along with this, I provide references, and then I make it so everyone can download these and get their counselors' information, their emails, and start sending your counselors these reports along with the resolution. So the words to put in front of them that we want them to pass. So we want to start giving them the words and moving forward from there. So providing information for decision making, because ultimately we're up against ICLEI. This is the ICLEI page. And what is ICLEI? It's a network of members and experts who are working together through peer exchange and partnership to create systematic change. So providing this information to everyone and connecting us together so that we can start to share information to push back on the systematic change is what KICLEI is all about. Thank you for taking people to that page earlier. I just want to show people what that looks like now. But essentially, we want people to join our network. And there's obviously great groups out there. I recommend, everyone just pick what they're interested in. But if you're interested in this, you can go to the Join Us page, and we'll contact you once an action group has reached out and started working with me collaboratively. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yeah, Maggie, you're going to be going, I think, all across the country pretty soon.
Yes.
Talking to people face to face.
So here you go. There's your link to register for the monthly Zoom meetings and introducing the strategies and providing support to teams across the country. This is a great meeting, and it's happening this month, the 30th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can also book a consultation with me now. This is...
That's not you. Who's that?
I don't know. That's a great picture of somebody with a lot of papers. That looks like me right there with like 100 papers in front of me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, now I've kind of listed the services that I'm providing. And really, if you want to work through these steps yourselves, the steps are there. So, what kind of research and organization is required to do this in your community? Researching the NGOs and the reports, the official plans, and creating and drafting reports. So I'm listing
Maggie,
the
I'll tell you
services
something. People are always asking me. First of all, they ask me, what's the most important thing, right? Because there's all these battles going on all the time. And what I tell them, at least what I have been saying in the last 6 months, is we need to attack this at a local level. This whole ICLEI thing. This is the hill, I believe, along with probably right now Bill C-293, which is dire. And it's close to passing the Senate from what I see here on the Parliament website. And we can get to that in just a second, because I know you were at the protest the other day. This local level thing, guys, is, people ask me, what can I do? What can I do? How can I help? Now, you could be sitting by yourself right now in your house, in your bedroom, in your living room, whatever, watching us talking and telling you this stuff. But maybe there's somebody in your town or your city who feels the same way that you do. And from that, you can start forming a group, and you can start standing up and fighting back against this stuff like Maggie has been doing. And she's got all the tools to show you how to do it. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel here. It's very important. Maggie, I believe the work that you're doing is the most important work here, because it's the most accessible thing to us, right? Something that we can affect the most easily just by talking to our local councillors. And in smaller towns, it's probably easier than it is in large cities, because, there's 3,000 people. There might be 5 or 6 councillors. you see them all the time in the coffee shop or at the garage or wherever they, with the local store, the co-op, wherever they happen to be, and you can engage them in that way. And like you say, you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to go yelling with, with the spears and torches or anything like that. You just ask them, what is going on with this? In your experience, have you seen councilors and mayors who are completely clueless about this? They have absolutely no idea that this is going on right under their noses?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say the majority of them don't know what's going on. Probably a couple counselors would very much like to oppose it, but they need the people. And all we need is a couple. We just need two, one to move the motion and one to second it to get this on the floor. And then there's probably one or two that are really pushing it, and the rest are in the middle. And those are the ones that we need to win the vote. So,
you know what's interesting too? I mean, this is where you find out exactly who those ICLEI people are, right?
Yes.
I mean, you may not know it until the motion gets pushed onto the floor, and then all of a sudden you can see by the face, oh no, they found out, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and you can see their demons come out.
And I see comments all the time. Oh, the only way to win this is just go arrest all of them. And it's like, should we maybe first like try and talk to them and figure out who is actually pushing this?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like the Marcus Ray character who was going around the country the last couple of years. I just received a very disturbing text that I can't share right now, but it was like I just got kicked in the stomach. I'll tell you about it later, but I can't tell you guys. It's just, whoa. But this Marcus Ray character wanted to take over RCMP stations and courthouses across the country and, have trials, mock trials, putting government. And so when you think about something like that, you think about a guy who, let's say he succeeded. Let's say he succeeded in taking over the Canadian Parliament by force. And what then? Are we going to have now this military-style dictator in place as the leader of our country? Or is he just going to say, all right, now that I've taken over, we can have ourselves a real democracy and a real republic here? I don't think so. People like that are the ones that become tin pot dictators. Right?
Yeah.
So we can't do that stuff. And I totally understand people who are frustrated and they want to arrest them all. But that's not how it works. We have to get to them the way they got to us, and that's from the inside.
And we don't have time. And we have to be mindful of, we need to think forward. Just like they did. They thought of this plan a long time ago, and we're going up against a 50-year-old plan, probably older than that. And they didn't do that by force. They did that diplomatically. They did it politely. They went in and they did presentations. And we're in a time where our country has a multitude of national crises happening: housing, affordability, mental health, drug addiction, drug dependency. The list goes on. So we just need to start pointing it out. Maybe this isn't a good time to upgrade the municipal building to green standards as you're raising property taxes. We're in the midst of inflation, and there's a housing crisis.
Zombies walking around your entire city, scaring people so badly that they don't ever want to go downtown again. Remember you and I were driving through downtown Winnipeg there a couple of months ago? And you were like, whoa, this is so nice. And it was a nice night, but I said, like, roll up the window.
Roll the window up.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to come, like, just reach into the car and try and grab you. I'm not
a city girl, so to me it's like, oh, it's so pretty.
It's not the way it should be, but that's how it is. And that's a sad situation, and it's happening in pretty much every major city in our country. Maggie, is there anything else that you need to mention to the folks here before we move along?
I just wanted to say, people can start, there's a booking link there. I know people are just reaching out like crazy to have some time with me and to get their group connected with me and everything. So there's obviously the Zoom meeting once a month, and there's also a booking link now. So people can look at the different things that I'm offering, things that I can do, and book some time and get moving forward. And basically moving forward, people will have to book that time with me and retain my services, because I'm basically working on this 14 hours a day, and I have to prioritize it somehow. Thank you.
And there's over 500 municipalities that are affected by all of this across the country. I was talking with lawyer Lisa Miron this morning in a press conference with a bunch of other independent media, and Dr. Mark Trosey was there and a few others. They were talking about Bill C-293, which appears to be coming to a conclusion in terms of passing. Its first reading was completed in the Senate back in June. Second reading, no activity on this yet. How devastating is this bill exactly? What do you know about it?
So it's basically handing over all of our health data to international organizations, once again, setting up a surveillance state to monitor and track our movements, who we interact with, both domestically and internationally. And, public health, when I went to the county yesterday, our public health officer was doing a presentation on public health and climate change. And you just see how this is all one big data collection, surveillance program coming through, right? And they're always tying public health to climate change, and the two go hand in hand. So everyone who is really, speaking up about the lockdowns and the pandemic and everything that we just experienced, I've always known that just as much as we had the doctors standing up to speak out about what was happening, we need the people with an expertise in what's really going on with the climate to start speaking out too. And essentially, to me, it's leading us down the path of becoming a surveillance state.
Many of them have. Many of these climate folks have spoken up with actual knowledge that is not beholden to any corporate interests, right? But they get censored. Every single time they speak up, they get censored. I think there's a movie called Climate that I watched on, was it Rumble? Probably. It couldn't have been YouTube because it's been canceled on YouTube, but I think I watched, it's 45 minutes long, and it's all of these scientists who've studied the climate. And by the way, there are no climate scientists per se, right? It's not like there's a course you can take. Be a climate scientist, 4 years. It's different fields of study within the climate. And it's not that everybody knows every single thing about the way the climate is operating. But a lot of people, Patrick Moore, for example, people like that who come out and give you basic information, grade 8 information.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It's 8th grade information. And you go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, how could it be then? And then they backtrack and they actually reason it out. And you go, it makes perfect sense to me. But these people are completely unaffected by any large corporate interests. So they're able to speak the truth that they know, the actual scientific truth. But the problem is that it's become politicized, and the media is owned by, the big corporate interests. So how do we fight back against that? We first thing I think is we have to stop being afraid of being called climate deniers before anything else, right?
Yeah. Patrick Moore, he was the founder of Greenpeace, in case people weren't aware of that. And he's spoken out against the IPCC quite a bit and this so-called climate consensus. They have now the Clintel intelligence group, and I think over 2,000 scientists from around the world have signed on their statement and declaration stating that there is no climate emergency, and they list out basic points, and that those are the main points I'm using for my climate facts series. And I think, like you said, grade 8, even grade 2 science, that's where we need to start with our neighbors. Just try and be the calm, introduce, because people are freaking out about the climate. It's creating eco anxiety amongst young people, old people, and you know, we can help people mentally by just reasoning with them.
Counselor you played video of, you know, when he says, well, I'm a teacher and I enjoy numbers, and how much of the atmosphere is exactly carbon dioxide, and how much of it is created by human beings, right? And he had all of the information in front of him. And I've seen that very question asked in the United States, in Congress, you know, when they have those hearings. And the person who is sitting there testifying never has the answer for that.
Yeah.
Right? But ultimately, carbon dioxide is plant food, and they breathe out oxygen. It's the exact opposite of what we do.
And Saskatchewan, the rural municipalities, 95% of them passed a resolution stating that exactly what you just said, that CO2 is not a pollutant, it's plant food, and they're no longer pursuing net zero by 2050 policies. And Tennessee did the same, right? They went so far as passing it into law that they're not, any organization in their state is not even allowed to work with ICLEI. So there are wins out there that are happening, and
people just don't know about them. Like this ICLEI, like these people who work for ICLEI, are they the Partners for Climate Protection? Is it the same one and the same?
ICLEI provides the technical tools, so the data collection resources, which makes sense because they're funded by Google, right?
Money.
So, and back to Bill C-293, you bet that these big tech companies are behind it because they're going to make a lot of money with all these data collection programs. And
so these the net zero aspect of this stuff, they I think they were a little bit scared that we were going to expose their carbon scam a while back, so they started going for nitrogen instead. Do you recall that? It was like all of a sudden the fertilizer that farmers use, it puts out too much nitrogen when they put it, right? So it was nitrogen, and I went, wait a minute, nitrogen, carbon, that's two different things. Are they getting set to create a new scare just in case their carbon thing gets exposed? The same thing with COVID, right? I mean, once COVID's gone, they're going to bring out monkeypox, and they're going to bring out disease X or the bird flu or something, right? They've always got to keep this narrative going. Anyway, Maggie, I know it's late out there for you, and maybe the dog needs to go for a walk. I've got to get to the extension on the website, so I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Again, guys, kickley.ca, or go to Gather 2030 on Substack. That's where you can find the Kickley Substack and all of the information that Maggie has been putting together. Reach out to her and take an information session. If there's something that you feel you need to do, I would suggest this is the hill that we need to die on, taking back our local governments and our municipalities, our cities. Before anything else, I think this is the most important thing. Maggie, thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
thank you.
All right.
And
Good
thanks,
night.
everyone.
You bet. Maggie Hope Braun, everybody from Kickley. So, listen, I don't know what's going on with Facebook. I have no idea what's going on with Facebook, but for the past 3 nights, and maybe tonight too, I have no idea. When I stop the live show on Facebook, it's supposed to process for a couple of minutes, and then you should be able to watch the replay. But for the past 3 nights on Facebook, nobody, including myself, has been able to watch the replay. This has nothing to do with me, and people have been messaging me saying, I can't watch your replay on Facebook. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything. It's Facebook's thing. I have no idea what's going on with Facebook, you guys. But if you have that same problem tonight where you can't watch the show again and I know you've been here watching it live, but some people will not be. You go ahead and you follow me on Rumble or X or YouTube, or become an All Access member at shadowdavis.com. That way you'll be able to catch the entire show without any sort of technical glitches or difficulties. That's it for the social media portion of the show tonight. I still have much more to give you in the extension for All Access members on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes. For those of you not joining there, I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I'll catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central with guest Greg Wycliffe. For All Access members, I'll see you at shadowdavis.com in 2 minutes.